Hello and welcome back to GAYSIANS, a PRIDECAST episode.
Hello. Hi, I am Jason the Gaysian.
And I'm Ariana the GAYSIAN.
Welcome.
This week, we are going to introduce a new segment to our podcast.
It's called What's the Most Gaysian Thing You've Done This Week? I will go first.
Yeah, start us off.
The most Gaysian thing I have done this week was watch America's Next Top Model, Cycle 6, and root for the only Asian girl on the show, Gina, even though she's very unqualified to be there. Shout out to Gina.
Shout out, Gina. We love you, girl. The most Gaysian thing that I have done this week is I have been searching for rainbow chopsticks to eat hot chips of various sorts without getting the dust on my fingers.
Yes.
Great. So now that we know that we're both still Gaysians.
Okay, so we are just going to run through some current events because there's a lot that's happened since our last episode. First and foremost, habeas corpus has been suspended in the state of New York. Habeas corpus, for those who don't know, essentially protects a prisoner because, Constitution states liberty for all. But whatever. It protects the prisoner and gives them the power to question the legality of their imprisonment. So essentially, if you get arrested and thrown in jail, because you get thrown in jail before you get thrown into prison, you have the right to see a judge that will question the legality of your imprisonment. As of the last couple days, New York Supreme Court Justice James Burke has ruled that the coronavirus and the mass protests were a valid reason to hold prisoners in excess of 24 hours, stating, "This writ is denied. All writs are denied for Brooklyn, Bronx, and Manhattan." So New York law required, as of, I think, 1991, that habeas corpus is to be granted to every prisoner within 24 hours. And Mr. James Burke just kind of shat on that and bulldozed through that. And yeah, we just want everyone to be aware because, jokes aside, it's extremely unconstitutional what they're doing. It is essentially, habeas corpus is one of the bases of what the Constitution, although very flawed, is built on.
The foundation of our justice.
Yes. And the fact that they're taking that away, they're very much leaning towards a dictatorship. They're giving the police even more power. So please, everybody, stay safe. And speaking of staying safe, if you don't know already, the police is very quickly getting militarized. I'm sure you guys have seen the articles and the posts of the police using tear gas, rubber bullets, explosives, and very unnecessarily extreme force on the protesters. So please, especially if you're in New York, but everywhere in the country, please stay safe, please be smart, and protect each other. We're all in this cause together to uplift our Black brothers and sisters. So we need all hands on deck, and we need all hands on deck to be alive. Please, so stay safe.
Also important to note, there is a curfew in most major cities. There's one in Rochester where I am, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, all the big ones where if you've been watching the news or seen on social media, there's probably a curfew. So just if you're out protesting, make sure you're aware of the decisions made in your specific area, just so that you can stay safe, make your choices with some background. But for good news, because that's why we're here.
Yes.
We want to stay woke, but we also want to uplift a little bit. There's an Instagram trend going around that is uplifting Black men and women. So go give them some love if you see them.
Yes.
Let's spread some positivity right now. Of course, we don't want to undermine the importance of what's happening right now, but I think some positivity and some uplifting is always.
It's important to see Black joy,
Yeah. We don't want to just turn these Instagram trends into negativity. let's lift each other up right now too. In some other good news, all 4 officers in George Floyd's case have been charged. Derek Chauvin, who was the man that was kneeling on his neck, has had his charge raised to second-degree murder, and the other 3 officers have been charged with aiding and abetting second-degree murder. This is really great news. It's the first step that we've been waiting for what seems like way too long, in my opinion. But it is just the first step, guys. Let's make sure we don't give up just yet. Also important to note, it would have been Breonna Taylor's 27th birthday on June 5th. Happy birthday up there.
Yes.
Let's keep fighting for justice, guys.
Say her name in the protest that you guys go to.
Yeah, we
please.
don't want to forget, because there has been no justice for her yet. Okay. Jason, do you want to introduce our...
Yes. Okay. All right. So this week's topic is, drumroll please, the Stonewall Riots. That's why I have a brick wall behind me. Woohoo! Okay. All right. So everyone knows Pride to be what it is now, right? So it's this big gay festival of being gay. It's a lot of gay and like gay. You know what I mean?
Rainbow realness. Yes.
Yes. But Pride had a lot of kind of a dark, not kind of a dark, but a very dark beginning. So yeah, Ariana, do you wanna elaborate?
Yeah. So as the 2 of us have been talking about the cancellation of Pride, I know that I've seen on social media there is a lot of disappointment with Pride being canceled, but I'm also seeing a lot of people that are upset that the Black Lives Matter movement is upstaging Pride during Pride Month. And that is really upsetting to me personally, because Black and brown trans women are the reason that we have Pride today. So Jason and I really wanted to talk about Stonewall, because I think there is a lack of education on this. I know that I don't remember exactly when I found out about Stonewall, but it was not soon enough.
Yeah. For me, it was, honestly, it was like about a year and a half ago. I was very uneducated about a lot of things in terms of gay history. Part of it was because I was an immigrant, so I didn't really know a lot of. I only knew what I was taught in the history books, and gay history is not taught in history books at all. But yeah, my voice teacher, shout out to one of the biggest queens I know, Michael Ryder. Hello. Basically, he put me in my place. You know what I mean? He was like, how do you, as a young gay man, not know what Stonewall is and the sacrifices that people have made so you can wear this and like have this, you know? It's really important to know, because it makes you appreciate what you have now. And it also makes you appreciate the things that are going on when communities like Black people don't have what we have, or aren't able to have what we have, you know?
So just for a little bit of an itinerary for today, we are going to give a brief history of Stonewall, and then we are going to get into our discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to give a brief history of Stonewall, but I do want to note, when I was doing my research, I found a really, really good article by Nathan Liang. He's in the MIT class of 2021. I'm going to link the article down below so that you guys can all go check it out, because it was really informative, a lot of really good history in there. It also has a lot of ways that Stonewall relates to what's going on right now. So it's a good read. Go check it out. He also has a really great list of resources that are all linked at the bottom of his article, ways that you can help with everything going on right now. So definitely go check that out. But we are going to give just a brief history before we start our real discussion.
Shout out to him though. Okay, so just to like set the stage a little bit, it was the summer of 1969. It was June 28th. To give a little bit of context, the civil rights movement had reached a boiling point a couple years back. Martin Luther King had just been assassinated the year before, but at that time, well, around that time, in 1964, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which banned discrimination in public facilities, was passed. And then the Civil Rights Act of 1968, or the Fair Housing Act, basically banned discrimination for people, Americans, who were trying to obtain property. Um, that was going on. There was also the Vietnam War, which was in full swing. It had been going on for, I think 10 years, but it had been going on for long enough that people were very much in distress about the state of the country. Also, the gay icons, Judy Garland had overdosed that same week, earlier in the week, and she was buried on June 28th. And the gay community was very much in a really dark place. The raids, police did raids to, let me backtrack. So gays and lesbians were very much considered outlaws all over the country. And police would do very brutal beatings. They could arrest you for wearing the wrong things, inappropriate clothing. And up until recently, they weren't allowed in public facilities, but I think a law had been passed that gay bars, or bars in general, would be allowed. But what they would do is, to kind of weed out the homosexuals, they would raid those bars. And if you were seen wearing inappropriate clothing or in too close contact with the same gender, the same sex, you very well could be arrested. Patrons.
Arrests for solicitation of homosexuality or non-gender appropriate.
Yes. Yes.
That was really, really common, unfortunately.
So on June 28th, at around 1 a.m. in the morning, the police did a raid on the Stonewall Inn. It was a very popular gay hub in New York City. The Stonewall Inn was run by the mafia. And so what that means is the mafia, they would hike up the prices of the drinks, but water them down. The gay patrons couldn't say anything because for the rich ones especially, the mafia threatened, because of the power that they had, they threatened to out those.
All right, technical difficulties once more.
I'm back.
Here we go.
So, mafia, bad. They were scamming the patrons, and they were also bribing NYPD. So, in terms of raids, they would be unannounced or they would be announced. Because the mafia and the police department had some sort of relationship going on, sometimes they would tell the employees at Stonewall if they were doing raids. That night, on June 28th, they did not. They came in unannounced and they started arresting people on site. And it became very violent very quickly. The gays honestly fought back. That's what they did.
Yeah, not enough this time.
Yes, bitch. Enough is enough. Barbara Streisand, Donna Summer. Look up the song. But yeah, so they started fighting back, and Marsha P. Johnson, a transgender black woman from New Jersey, was in the bar that night and was widely alleged to be the first person to throw the brick that started the riot at Stonewall. So when things got violent, a crowd started to form very, very quickly. Lots of people started fighting the police, and the police actually had to barricade themselves inside Stonewall Inn. And so what they did was the gays, they set the building on fire. And yeah, the police had some casualties, but they were for the most part rescued into safety. But that first night was pivotal because it started about a week worth of riots around the country that basically catapulted the gay rights movement.
Yeah, if I could jump in for just a second. The Stonewall Riots began the formation of the Gay Liberation Front, which was the movement that organized the first gay pride marches, which would fall every year on the anniversary of Stonewall. I don't know, sounds a lot like a pride parade to me.
Yes, the
So,
Pride was the next year.
right. It's also really important to note that Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera were both trans women of color. The two of them fought to secure trans people a place in this movement, and they founded Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, or STAR. And they were an integral part of moving this movement forward. And they actually faced a lot of oppression from their cisgender white homosexual peers. So, why, Jason, is it so important that the LGBTQ plus community knows about Stonewall and what happened?
Because we were talking about it a little bit before, but we cannot walk around here and it's what it is ignorance, to be honest. I'm not really sure why anyone would choose to be ignorant because a lot of people, like we see that meme that so and so walked so and so could run. These gays walked in the 1960s. They rioted, they marched, they literally walked so we could run and skip and death drop to our heart's delight. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's so important to know our history and to know where we come from because it it enlightens us as people and kind of it makes us act better as human beings towards each other as a community because the fact I was reading about that too. The fact that there was a lot of transphobia within the gay community itself at the time. Drag queens were not respected, and they were not like the transgenders were not considered real women or men, not by their own community, not by the straight community. It was just awful. It was extremely awful.
You know, it's so important that we lift each other up and that we support each other. Um, we see that especially right now. Um, and it just, I also, I've noticed a lot of people, even if they're like, oh yeah, I know that we had pride because of Stonewall, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people have the misconception that the Stonewall riots were about marriage equality, and they were not. They were against police brutality. So if you are a member of the LGBTQ plus community and you are not standing by the Black Lives Matter movement right now, if you're not doing everything you can to be anti-racist, I want you to take a second and think about why we have pride and why maybe pride isn't the most important thing that's happening right now, because pride started because Black and brown trans women fought against police brutality so that we could have the rights that we have today, so that we could have our rainbow festival and celebrate who we are. We wouldn't have it without them. And it really shocks me how little this movement is discussed. It really blows my mind.
Yes, it's not news that white men have the power. You know what I mean? White supremacy is not foreign to anybody. Um, not to gays, not to people of color, not to the white, not even to the white people. You know what I mean? It's but it is important to know that what we have and what is going on. It's like one of those things where like people who are in the same position aren't able to see. Do you know what I'm talking about, Ariana? Like we they have been oppressed for as long as this country has been around. We have not necessarily been oppressed as gay people, but I don't even know where I'm going with this man. But like, you can't be a bad person. You really can't. You can't be uneducated. You can't be ignorant to what's going on.
I just I get the disappointment that Pride is canceled, guys, but there is something that is more important right now, and it relates to our history more than some people know. It's also, it really, there is a lot of homophobia in the Black community, and I think that needs to be addressed too, because Black trans lives matter. They were fighting against police brutality too, and actually, I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna go to my notes and I'm gonna come right back. Okay, I found my note. Um, this was mentioned in the article that I mentioned before, but I just want to point it out real quick. There have already been 12 deaths of trans people in 2020. 2019 was the deadliest year to date, and we're not doing much better this year so far. The most recent being Tony McDade in Tallahassee, Florida on May 27th, right after George Floyd was murdered. It just breaks my heart, man.
It's crazy how quickly people can forget themselves, because if we think about it, gay culture is so different now than it was 50 years ago. Not that we were alive 50 years ago, but like the very fact that RuPaul's Drag Race is so casually mentioned, the very fact that, you know what I mean? It's just a lot of things have built up to what we have now. And even within the gay community, like the music that is celebrated is pop music. And you know what I mean? Like the queens that are so heavily worshipped. It's like the Beyoncés, the Tina Turners, the Donna Summers, even like the Ariana Grandes and like the Britneys. Like, you know what? They have taken what they have from the origination of Black music. You know what I mean? Like, it's the pop culture that we so heavily listen to is based off of Black voices. You know what I mean? Drag, as we know it in America, was started by the Black and brown community. So y'all can't go around watching RuPaul's Drag Race saying this, that, and the third about this queen, that queen, whatever. And you know what I mean? Not take the time to appreciate what it actually comes from. Because what it makes you sound like is it makes you sound ignorant, number one, and it makes, I hate to call people bad gays, but like that's essentially what you are. Like,
Yeah.
there's not really much.
I think what's positive that's coming out of everything that's happening is I think there's a lot more conversations going on.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation because I think it's time that we educate ourselves and start asking respectful questions if you don't know something, so that you can learn. And I think it's just important for us to understand our history and to be grateful for what we have and know why we have it and know why we need to keep fighting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just can't be ignored. Not anymore. We've seen it. Like it's been going on for far too long.
Okay, so another issue that we wanted to address, well, Ariana kind of touched on it with Tony McDade and stuff, but there's a lot of racism that goes on in the LGBT community, and to reverse that, there's a lot of homophobia, transphobia that goes on in POC communities, and that is that's honestly very heavily correlated to why a lot of people don't know or honestly might not care to know about the issues that are going on, you know?
Yeah, I actually saw a really great moment on Facebook the other day. Someone had posted something, really similar to what we're talking about now, and somebody said, I disagree. I don't understand how these movements can be related to one another. Like it's not like I don't feel like I need to stand up for gay rights. And someone said, "Hey, did you know about Stonewall?" And they told them, and the person said, "You know what? Actually, I had no idea. That's really cool. I didn't know that." And let's talk about it.
Yeah. It's really time. I mean, I guess it's not a good problem to have, but it's a result of us having such an excess. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a reversal of roles. Like we are so allowed to be who we are, and like we have so much more than what our I don't know if it's right to call it ancestors, but like the people who came before us, we have so much more than what they had, and our ignorance is a result of us kind of again forgetting what came before. But like to, I guess address homophobia in POC communities, like I know at least in the Filipino community, in the Asian community, like they're not necessarily against you being gay, but it's very much the kind of thing that you can't, they don't want to see that around you. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to They don't want to see all that. Like, don't. It's actually crazy. I was talking to my best friend's brother, and like, um, I said something. I said something very jokingly, and like he immediately like kind of backed away and like slinked away, and like it wasn't necessarily like an ew, don't touch me, but it was like you could very much see it in his head, you know, that I wasn't something to be associated with in that moment, you know, and the same I guess could be said in reverse about the racism in the gay community. You know, the very fact that we have labels for everything, like that's that's a product of racism. You know what I mean? The fact that you have to call him an Asian whatever and like a black what, you know what I mean? It's just it's not. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Like labels and colorism and all that. Like that's it's a direct result of the racism that has been brought to us by white supremacists.
Right. And I think I've always had, a little bit of an issue with labels. I think if you find something that makes you feel like you belong, like you have a place, there's this name and it's a label and it makes you feel good, it makes you feel included. That's great. I just Me personally, I don't like them because I don't feel like I'm doing it for me. I feel like I'm doing it so that somebody else can put a label on me so they can understand everything about my life. And I feel like it doesn't come so much from within our community. It comes from people wanting to put a label um on something so they feel that they can understand it or that they can win. And
Mm-hmm.
I just I don't know. I don't like it, man.
It's like whenever I've had this thought, and this has been a reoccurring thought for me for the last couple of weeks. I don't know about you, but like it's just so in our face. It's been so in our face the last couple of days. And like when we have a problem, obviously what we want to do is solve it. But like it's this big gigantic thing, like racism and prejudice and all that. Like it's so huge and looming that it feels like we can't do anything about it. Is that how you feel, Ariana? Like
Yeah, I've definitely been feeling overwhelmed. Um, there's these big, um, systematic racism and prejudices and all these issues that seem like it's too big, um, for me as one person to make a difference. Um, but I think we need to have conversations.
yeah,
Um, we need to do our part. Just do whatever you know how to do to make a difference. And I think there's strength in numbers, and we've seen that. Um, and we've just people have come together. People all over the world. I saw on the news. I'm sure you know this too, but there have been protests in all 50 states and also all over the world, making this largest civil rights movement in history. That's incredible. And I know that Trump said, like, people are looking at America and they think that we look stupid. I don't think so. They're out there protesting in their own homes. And I just, and it's because people are having conversations. People are thinking about this more. And I know that it can feel overwhelming, but I think as long as you're doing the best that you can, truly the best that you can, like, take a look at yourself, think, is there something more I can do? And if you think of something that you can change, do it. And if you don't know how, ask someone. have
yeah,
have these conversations. I think conversations can be some of the things that make the most difference, because we can look at, I mean, you can block all of your racist friends on Facebook, or you could take the time to have a conversation with them.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think a lot of, like, with All Lives Matter, a lot of people they're just uneducated on it, and um it's easy to get angry with those people. um but you could also take the time to say, hey, do you know what's going on? There's a lot of different like little anecdotes that people are using to try and describe the Black Lives Matter movement. Like, if my house was on fire and your house isn't, the firefighters would come, um and they would try to put the fire out at my house, and we could say all houses matter, but in this moment your house is not on fire, so my house needs the help right now.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course, all houses matter, but if your house isn't on fire, you're doing okay.
Yeah.
And I like years ago, I feel like years ago, I had a conversation with my mom where it's like, if I was going to a breast cancer march, am I saying that all cancers don't matter? No,
Right.
I'm just saying this is the one we're focusing on right now. This is the one that's important at this moment.
Yeah, because that might be a little bit of what is kind of holding some of the LGBT community back. You know what I mean? We're not saying pride doesn't matter. Of course not. Of course not. You know what I mean? I can't have more pride than I already do. You can have pride anywhere, anytime that you know what I mean. You carry that with you in your heart. It's not about the parade. It's not about the fancy costumes. It's not about, you know what I mean, all the rainbows and sunshines and whatever. You know, it's inside of you. So no matter who you march with, what you march about, you know, it's still gonna you're still gonna have that inside of you. You can still be proud of your sexual gender orientation while still supporting like the life of another person.
Right.
Makes sense. So yeah. It really starts with like having more compassion, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's the end of our episode.
I think so too.
Yeah, just for our viewers out there, this is definitely going to be how our episodes are going to be formatted. Just to give you guys a heads up, because it's going to be mostly just the two of us, GAYSIANS, if that's okay with y'all, which it should be. So yeah, do you have anything else to add, Ariana?
Just we said it last time too. We didn't get any guys. If there's something you want us to talk about, please let us know. We have some ideas.
Yeah.
But if there's topics that you would like us to discuss, we would love to know. We would love your ideas.
Y'all, we literally do extensive research every week on a topic. So please help us out. You know what I mean?
Let us know, because even if we don't know what you're talking about, we'll look it up.
Yes, exactly.
I just want to say one more time also before we go off the air. Please go check this article out. It's really great. I'm going to link it down below. It's called The Stonewall Riots and the Origin of American Gay Pride, Marginalized Groups, and the Eternal Fight for Equal Rights. It's really, really good. Please go check it out. Also, there's a lot of resources in that article. I want to give credit where credit is due. It taught me a lot, so please go
Yes,
check
ma'am.
it out if you want to know more about Stonewall. There's a lot out there, especially right now with everything going on. There's a lot of articles on it right now if you want to do some learning.
All right, y'all. We're going to see you next week. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.
Bye.